My name is Brenda. I am a student at UCLA who I study comparative literature, and I am writing a story about consumption and waste. Go ahead.
Okay. Just running for it. My name is Natalie, and I'm, well, kind of a student at Mount SAC, and I'm waiting to transfer, and I'm an art history student.
Awesome.
So my name is Issa. I go to Cal Poly Pomona, and I'm an organizational communication major.
Cool. So I know Natalie from work at Mount San Antonio College. We work together. We're both kind of like teachers' aides, and I worked with Issa at Starbucks. That's how I know you guys. So I'm glad you guys are together. So today we're going to be talking about consumption and waste of feminine hygiene products. So I'm just going to ask you guys a few questions, and then you guys can respond however you want. If you don't want to respond to a certain question, feel not to. Like, you're not pressured at all to do anything that you don't want to do. This is going to be completely a safe space. I want you guys to be friendly with each other, and we're not supposed to be kind of debating as opposed to just discussing our own personal experiences, as well as including my own, not just you two. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So just to avoid talking over each other, if you answer a question the first time, hold off to answer the second question until after the next person is ready. Is that okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like alternate?
Yeah, just alternate. Thank you. Okay. So my first question for you guys is, which feminine hygiene products do you use during your menstruation?
I'm say the last 2 years I've been using reusable pads and sea sponges. So those are the two that I use interchangeably, or even conjunction when I'm on my period. Like on my heavier flow, I'll use my sponge and then also a pad.
Oh, okay. What is a sponge?
So a sea sponge is just like, it literally is from the ocean. People use them to like wash their body and stuff, but now that people are like, companies are now cutting them in a shape that where you could like use it in place of a tampon. So I just inserted like how you would more like maybe a menstrual cup. So similar in that regard, because it's a reusable product and not a single use menstruation product. But yeah, they come from the ocean, and I just rinse them when I'm done with them. And every cycle I boil them, and then for like 3 to 5 minutes to disinfect them.
Okay, cool. And how long do they usually? How long are they usable for?
I keep them for about 6 months. I have two, so I just repurchase every 6 months.
Okay, cool. And Natalie?
I use, I guess, just standard menstrual products. I use pads that I buy at the store. And that's about it.
So just pads?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And is there a specific brand that you use?
I kind of just buy the ones that fit the most comfortably. So I guess I use you by Kotex.
Okay. Those are the ones that I used to use before I switched to more environmentally conscious products. So I personally use bamboo cotton pads, and I also use a silicone menstrual cup. So I just bought the pads because I noticed that my period is changing a lot. I've always been pretty irregular, so it's kind of weird to figure out, even when I used tampons and pads, to figure out which products to get because of my very moody menstrual flow. So now I bought pads. But I wanted to buy regular pads, but then I just felt too guilty, so I bought like the reusable cotton washable pads, and I feel holier now.
Yeah, I have a similar situation to that where menstrual products aren't really at the forefront of my mind because I do have a syndrome with my ovaries where I don't get my period consistently, so I don't actively like use period products. So I very rarely buy them.
Okay, so then that leads us to our next question. How do you choose which products to use?
That's kind of difficult. I never really put much thought into it. I kind of just tried out different ones until I found one that felt comfortable for that time. So I kind of just stuck to what works.
Okay, and Issa?
So before I even used reusable products, I was already transitioning into more like less toxic or like toxin-free menstrual products. So I was using the Al brand from Target, um, which is a really cool brand. It's like organic cotton, and so that was really cool. But after that, so basically, I was thinking about my health, and then after that, I started using a menstrual cup, which didn't work for me, and then I switched to the sea sponges, and I did it mostly for my health because it helped my cramps a lot. My period is regular, and I get like I'm not entirely sure if I have that syndrome. I forgot how to say it, endometritis. I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's pretty bad. But now that I use sponges and more like things without toxins, my cramps have subsided like significantly. So that's kind of how I choose my products for.
That's interesting. I never connected cramps with the type of products that you use. But I did realize that when I switched over from tampons to the menstrual cup, my cramps are significantly less severe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now I'm wondering, like, and I know that when you use menstrual cups, the possibility of suffering from toxic shock syndrome um, is a lot less. So I'm wondering maybe if it's like the chemicals that are being put inside the
Yeah, I've
products that. Go ahead.
no, sorry. I just read some stuff that it's like a lot of the chemicals inside tampons and on pads can be a lot of the reasons why you have cramps.
Interesting. Okay, that's kind of scary. How do
Yeah.
you feel about that, Nat?
I had no idea. I guess like I should do more research on the products I use. And I'm pretty lucky as far as that goes because of my irregularity, but also when I do have my periods, they tend to be very smooth. So I never really considered that to be an obstacle for other women or people who have periods.
That's very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so when you guys choose products, I know it's like you're using the reusable stuff that you switch over every 6 months, and then Natalie, yours is a little less consistent. Um, my period, for example, is or was very heavy. Uh, and then, so when I used to use pads and tampons, I would go through literally an entire pack of tampons and an entire pack of pads as well, um, because I would always be leaking, I would always be overflowing. It was gross and too much. So this would be, I researched at Target how much it is now, and it's actually 15.31, including tax, for each period. So at a regular cycle rate, I would spend a little bit less than $200 a year for my products. However, I have been having my period consistently since I was 11 years old. So if I had continued to spend this much money yearly, by the time I reached menopausal age, I would have spent $8,200 on my period. Now that I use a menstrual cup that I bought for $40 3 years ago, uh, and for the lightest days of my period, which I mentioned earlier, I used the reusable pads that I bought exactly for $15. So in 3 years, instead of spending $600, I only spent $55 on period products. How much do you guys think that you have spent in a year on
Um,
your period products?
I spend well, right now with just the sponges because I don't replace the pads yearly. Those I think I probably would replace in a few years. I keep them up really well. And then my sponges, I think I spend about $32 a year on them. They're 16 for two.
Oh wow! So you said you placed them twice
Twice a year,
in the
so every
year.
6 months,
Yeah.
and then I get two in the package, and they're $16.
Okay, cool. So that's a really like affordable alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of like dismisses the claims that menstrual cups and reusable products are so expensive all at once, and it's not. It's really not.
Hmm.
Um, so, Nat, how much do you think you spend?
I would guess the same, maybe $30, maybe a year.
$30 a year?
Yeah,
Wow,
maybe up to 50. Yeah,
that's crazy. I'm
yeah.
like, I used to spend 200 a year. That's so much money. But I did have like heavy periods. I think perhaps maybe my periods are a little bit more heavier than normal, or they used to be at least. Not anymore so much. Um, so Issa, this question doesn't apply to you because you already used reusable products, but maybe you can tell me why you decided to switch over to reusable period products.
Well, at first I had like looked into like health or like more organic products for myself for like my health, and then it was at the same time where I was kind of leaning toward making my whole life a little bit more sustainable. And I chose to do like my period. I chose that to be one of the things that I changed to be less single use because it's something I do or happens to me so frequently, once a month, and I basically just am aiming to, because I obviously still use like single use things in plastic. Sometimes it's inevitable, but like I try to make my like habitual things sustainable, things that I know I can control. So this is something that has even made me like even more connected to my own self because taking a sea sponge out of you is a lot different than taking a tampon out of you, you know?
I completely agree with you. That's actually a very interesting point. Ever since I switched to menstrual cups, I feel like I know my body a lot more compared to when I used pads and tampons because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's like an intimacy with reusable products compared to just disposable products that you don't even have
Mm-hmm.
to worry about. Like you don't even see it. Like I think having to deal with your own your body's menstrual waste compared to just disposing it and not seeing it again. I think it creates this connection, I guess, if
Yeah, no,
that
I
makes
completely
sense.
agree.
Yeah. So, Nat, would you ever feel comfortable using reusable period products?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I've considered products that are more sustainable for a while, and I feel like I've avoided it for the exact reason you kind of just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Having to confront like my body during my period is odd for me. I think, especially society encourages us to not do that.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
hearing you guys mention it, I feel a little bit more comfortable with the idea. So, yeah, I think I definitely would look into it. And then you mentioned the organic cotton pads, which I'm definitely gonna Google after this. Yeah.
Great. So, that's awesome. Yeah, I know that's a big issue for a lot of people. On top of the upfront cost of buying reusable products is the fact that you have to face your own blood, like deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that puts off a lot of people. But I definitely believe that I think with dealing with your own menstrual blood, it almost like it's empowering in a way because you I don't know, I think it has to do a lot with like self-love and self-care and
Mm-hmm.
just acknowledging that this is what your body does and dealing with it every month, and I think that's a very beautiful thing. Okay, let's move on. So, how do you guys deal with the waste that you generate from your period? For example, I mean, not from your period, but from the period products that you use. Um, do you, for example, flush it down the toilet, the pads, for example, or do you wrap it in toilet paper and throw it in a trash can? And then for Issa, like since you use reusable feminine hygiene products, do you generate any waste at all?
Well, I will say prior to having like reusable products, I definitely was not disposing of my things properly. I would put tampons down the toilet, and I think I found out that was not the way to do it. Like when I was already reusing reusable things, and I was really shocked. But in terms of like the single use or the reusable things I use right now, I the sea sponges are like compostable, so those can be like they're composted. They're nothing bad with that. And then the pads I've had for the last few years, and I haven't had to dispose of them, but they're organic cotton, I believe. So I'm not sure what I'll do with those, but I'm sure I think those are also compostable as well if it's cotton.
Yeah, I think so too. And Nat, what do you do?
Fairly standard, just wrap it in toilet paper and throw it in the trash.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you're not, neither of you are no longer or never did throw it away in the toilets. Because I know that I used to throw away tampons in the toilet, and I only recently, like really recently, doing research for this little podcast thing, I realized that you're not supposed to throw away tampons in the toilet because it can clog them and it causes a lot of plumbing issues
Like
and stuff.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
plumbing.
So I just learned about it, but I'm like, okay, well, I haven't used a pad or I mean a tampon in years, so
Same, that's how I felt.
yeah, so I just learned about that. I don't think a lot of people know that, because I think it just when it's full, it just kind of slips out, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's just done. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so according to the new book, Flow, The Cultural History of Menstruation, the average woman throws away between 250 and 300 pounds of feminine hygiene product waste in her life. This includes the packaging, the covers of the tampons and pads, the plastic applicators, the paper behind the little sticky backing wings, and the period absorbing product itself. Um, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think that's a lot,
Um,
Nat?
I guess it's hard for me to gauge. Could you repeat how much waste it was? I think I cut out when you said
Yes,
that.
it's 250 and 300 pounds worth of this tiny plastic stuff.
Wow, that's almost equivalent in size to me. So yeah, I'd gauge to say that that's a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean compared to a human, like it's because it's such a small product for in order for it to be 300 pounds, it's going to be a lot more than your physical body. You know what I mean? Um,
mhm.
I'm sure if you compress it somehow, it could. Yeah, yeah, but it's not going to be anywhere near our own bodies. I think it's going to be a lot more.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just crazy that like the plastic, or we just how plastic is so pervasive in everything. I mean, it makes everything a lot more convenient, but you just don't think about how much you actually produce, you know?
Yeah. So, do you guys think it's important at all to generate less waste as like 50% of the population, probably more, I think. Should we focus less on, or should we focus more on creating less waste from these products? Why or why not?
I generally think we should. I think that, especially in the last few years, I've been um, the concept of sustainability has been brought more to mind for me, outside just the realm of like personal products, and more, I guess, towards like clothes and food, wrappers and things like that. And I think it's relatively easy to also make your life more sustainable. But I think Issa mentioned it where it's a convenience thing and
Totally.
it's an impersonal way of dealing with your environment. So yeah, I think that where we can, we should be aiming to make the world more sustainable.
I agree. And Issa, since you already kind of are very into like a low impact environmental issues and consumption. Do you think that there are quote unquote bigger fish to catch when it comes to waste creation? Um, when it, obviously in terms of menstruation products, or do you think we should focus on other things?
I think if you're capable, like if you're able-bodied and you have the time and the desire, I think you should. Um, that being said, I don't like the whole like bigger thing, like bigger fish to catch kind of thing. Like I think if we just try a little bit where like personalized, like so maybe for someone walking to the grocery store is how they want to like cut back on their consumption of like carbon emissions, and that works for them, but they don't want to use reusable pads because that is not for them. I think if we try to do what works for us, even if it's small things and even if it's not like radical changes to your whole life, I think that's important. So if this like the menstruation products isn't for you, then like then it's not for you. But if you think it's something that you can do to help the planet, I definitely encourage people to do that.
Awesome. Okay, well, that kind of concludes our discussion about consumption and waste in terms of our vaginas and periods, basically. So thank you so much for helping out, Issa and Natalie. I really appreciate it. Yeah, is there anything else that you guys want to include?
No, but just thank you for having this conversation. It was really great.
Thank you.
Thanks for considering. Thanks for considering us, I guess, for this project.
Thank you for volunteering.